Good evening, and thank you for coming to the world premiere event of On a Positive Note. I'm Rick, and I represent the Triangle chapter of the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism, or FAIR. FAIR is a new organization in the world and new to North Carolina, and so we're using this evening as a means of attracting attention to our cause and in particular to our methodology. So I believe very strongly in FAIR's approach to healing the differences between people by putting the similarities of people first and our differences second. Tonight we've invited a couple of really stellar musicians who are also members of FAIR, and Mr. Davis is on our board of advisors. They're going to talk about their stories of racial healing, and Daryl Davis has an amazing backstory that you'll hear about from him directly. But oh, by the way, there will be music. And it will be really good. So with that, let me get right to the entertainment. Let's bring in Daryl Davis and Aaron Hölljes. Thanks, guys.
Good evening. How is everybody? So we're so happy to be here representing FAIR, the Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism, and this particular portion is called FAIR in the Arts. We have FAIR in Education, FAIR in Medicine, FAIR in Diversity, FAIR in the Arts, and a few other subdivisions, and we're always building and increasing. So really appreciate your interest. And tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about music, play some music, and show you why music is so important in our lives. And what FAIR does is it represents any kind of injustices created in any field. In this particular case, the music industry, whether it's historical injustice, whether it's exploitation of musicians or discrimination of not hiring a musician because of skin color or religion or sexual preference, or things like that. So that's what FAIR is all about. And it's very important to recognize, and I say this not because Eric and I are musicians, but because it's true. A lot of people think that music is a luxury, not a necessity in schools. But take my word for it, the arts are a necessity. Indeed, okay? Because you think about this, when the economy goes south, one of the first things they cut in the educational budget are the arts. They keep the sports, and that's fine. They keep the academics, well, they got to, but they cut the arts. When you're driving to work and you're stuck in traffic, what are you doing? You're listening to music. You're jogging on the trail or doing your aerobics in the gym or whatever. You got your earbuds in, listening to music. You're ironing clothes. You're listening to music. You get off work for working your 8-hour day behind your desk. You might go to happy hour with your coworkers or whatever. There's somebody playing guitar in the corner or somebody playing the piano doing happy hour. It's music. We need that music. And I graduated with my degree in music back in 1980, and the course my degree is in performance, but they also offered a course in music therapy. And it was relatively new back then. It's still new today, 40 years later, because we've just barely cracked the tip of the iceberg of music therapy and the power of music. They play certain kinds of music in the psych ward at the hospital because certain kinds of music keep people calm. When there's an upset in the prison, they play certain kind of music to calm people down. Think about it. When you go to your dentist, there's music playing in the overhead. Back in the day we called it Muzak. It's kind of watered down kind of music, right? But don't think it's just random music. It is programmed music, certain songs, certain progressions, etc., to keep you calm while somebody is drilling in your mouth, because that raises your anxiety, right? So the power of music. And I want to demonstrate a few things to you. Like, for example, I'll give you a hypothetical example, and then I'll give you a true-to-life example. What's your name? Patrice? Okay, so Patrice here, let's say this. Let's say that What's today? Monday. Okay, so let's say on Friday, right? I'm a musician, but I have a Friday night off. So rather than be the entertainer and play so people can dance to my music, I want to be entertained. I want to go out dancing. So on Friday night, I go to the bar or the club or whatever it is down the street that has a dance floor. Maybe there's a band playing there. Maybe it's a DJ. Whatever it is, there's music, and I want to dance. So I go there. A good song is playing, and the dance floor is full. What do? I'm looking around to see if I see a single lady who's unattached that maybe I can dance with. And I see Patrice over there sitting by herself at the bar, and she's doing like this in time to the music, patting in beat, right? So obviously she likes that song that's playing. So I walk over to her. I don't know her from Adam. I say, hey, you want to dance? She goes, yeah, sure. She pops off her bar stool, and she and I go out on the dance floor. If it's a slow song, we're like this, turning slowly around on the floor. If it's a fast song, we're apart, shaking, whatever, right? I don't even know her name, right? After the song, I escort her back to her seat. I say, hey, thank you for the dance. By the way, my name is Daryl. She says, my name is Patrice. And I say, so what do you do, Patrice? And she says, I'm the vice president of marketing for Microsoft East Coast. Whoa. She's making, $500,000 a year. And she says, so what do you do, Daryl? I'm a busboy at Applebee's. What am I making, $9,000 a year or something? Where would two people that far apart come this close? That's the power of music, okay? Now, I just gave you a hypothetical example. I'm going to give you a real example. Let's see here. I graduated back in 1980 from college, got my degree in jazz, but I play rock and roll, country, blues, boogie woogie, R&B. If they're paying, I'm playing, okay? So, now, a while back, country music had made a resurgence in our country. There had been a movie out that had just come out called Urban Cowboy with John Travolta. Had this mechanical bull, all these line dances, and all that kind of thing. So all the bars and clubs that were playing disco and R&B and top 40 and whatever else, they switched their format to country. So I joined a country band. And country music and blues is the same music. It's the same three chords. So it was a very easy shift. And I like country music. So I was the only black guy in this band. This is in Maryland, state of Maryland. I'm from Chicago originally, but I was living in Maryland. And this band was pretty well established in the area. They've been playing for a while. And I joined them, only black guy in the band, and usually the only black guy in many of the places where we would play. Well, there was a club in a town called Frederick, Maryland. Frederick, Maryland is about an hour and 20 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. And the name of the bar was called the Silver Dollar Lounge. The Silver Dollar Lounge had a reputation of being a whites-only lounge. Now, there were no signs that said, no blacks allowed or whites only, nothing like that. But you knew, if you were black, you did not go there. Because, when you go somewhere where you're not welcome and alcohol is being served, it's not always a good combination, right? So here, the band had played there before. I'd never even been there. I knew of it, but I'd never been there. Well, here I am in the Silver Dollar Lounge. And we had just finished, I'm the only black person in the whole place. We had just finished the first set. And we're leaving the bandstand to go take a break. I'm following the band over to the band table. And I feel somebody from behind come up behind me and put their arm across my shoulder. Now, I see the whole band walking in front of me, and I don't know anybody in this joint. So I turn around to try to see who's touching me. And it was this white gentleman, maybe 15, 18 years older than me, big smile on his face. He says, man, I sure like your all's music. I said, thank you. I shook his hand, showed him I appreciate that. And he pointed at the stage and said, I've seen this here band before, but I ain't never seen you before. Where'd you come from? And I explained that I just joined the band a couple months ago. Yes, he probably did see them because they told me they'd played here before, but this is my first time. And he says, well, man, I sure like your piano playing. This is the first time I ever heard a black man play piano like Jerry Lee Lewis. Now, I was not offended, but I was rather surprised because this guy was at least a decade and a half older than me. And so he should have known the black origin of Jerry Lee Lewis's piano style. And for you young people out there who might not know who Jerry Lee Lewis is, okay, he was there at the beginning of rock and roll. He didn't invent rock and roll, but he was there at the beginning. So maybe, if you don't know the name Jerry Lee Lewis, I'm sure you've heard some of his songs on the oldies but goodies stations saying things like "Whole Lot of Shaking Going On" and "Goodness Gracious, Great Balls of Fire." If you think about those songs and that rollicking piano in there, that's Jerry Lee Lewis. So I went on to explain to the guy, well, Jerry Lee got his style from the same place I did, from black, blues, and boogie-woogie piano players. Oh, no, I ain't never heard no black man play like that, except for you. So I'm thinking, okay, well, this guy never saw Little Richard or Fats Domino. It's the same, boogie-woogie, rockabilly style there. And I said, he still didn't believe me. I said, look, man, I know Jerry Lee Lewis. Jerry Lee Lewis is a very good friend of mine. He's told me himself where his influences were. He didn't believe I knew Jerry Lee. But he was fascinated with me and wanted to invite me back to his table and buy me a drink. Now, I don't drink, but I agreed to have a cranberry juice with him. So go and have the cranberry juice. He takes his glass and he clinks my glass and cheers me and says, this is the first time I ever sat down and had a drink with a black man. Now I'm baffled. Like, how can this be? Because at that point in my life, I had sat down literally with tens of thousands of white people or anybody else and had a meal, a conversation, a beverage. How is it that this guy, 15, 18 years older than me, had never done that? And innocently, I asked him, I said, why? And at first he didn't answer me. I asked him again. And his buddy sitting next to him elbowed him and said, tell him. I said, tell me. He looked back at me just as plain as day, and he said, I'm a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Well, I burst out laughing at him because now I didn't believe him, right? I know a lot about the Klan, a whole lot about the Klan. And they don't just come up and hug a black guy and want to, buy them a drink and praise their talent and want to hang out. It doesn't work that way. So, I figured the guy's pulling a joke on me. And, he didn't believe that, he probably thought I was pulling a joke on him, telling him I knew Jerry Lee. Well, I didn't have these pictures with me at the time, but there is a young Daryl Davis and Jerry Lee Lewis, okay? And then here's another one a few years ago with Billy Joel and Jerry Lee Lewis. So I know Jerry Lee very well, but I didn't have that to show him. So we talked about the Klan and some other things, but it was music that brought us together. And that initial meeting of coming together in a non-violent way and using music. The guy gave me his phone number and wanted me to call him whenever I was to return to this bar, the Silver Dollar Lounge, with this band, because he wanted to bring his friends, Klansmen and Klanswomen, to see the black guy who plays like Jerry Lee. So I'd call him, whenever we were on the schedule, and he'd come. He'd bring Klansmen and Klanswomen. And, I would meet some of them. Some of them, did not want to meet me. When they saw me coming on the break, they'd get up and move to the other side of the room. But those who wanted to meet me hung there, and, we got to talk. And so I took that opportunity to write a book. And my book became the first book written by a black author on the Ku Klux Klan from the perspective of sitting down, having conversations face to face. And I did that all over this country. I traveled up north, down south, Midwest, and West, interviewed Grand Dragons, Imperial Wizards, and all kinds of other Klan officers and rank and file members. So what did I do? Meeting these people. I've been doing this now for 40 years. This is about 29 years ago in the state of Maryland. That's towards the end of a rally. You see the fire on the cross is getting ready to go out. This is about 6 or 7 years ago in Missouri. Again, towards the end of a rally. There were more Klansmen and Klanswomen there, but the rally is over. They're over at the condiment table getting burgers and dogs and whatever else. What do I do at these things? I talk with people. I'm a firm believer that a missed opportunity for dialogue is a missed opportunity for conflict resolution. The guy you see right here in the green mask that I'm talking to, when I came on that rally ground, he threatened me. This is about 6 or 7 years ago. To this day, every year, he sends me a Christmas present. And now he's no longer in that organization. The guy you see on the left here, he was the leader of that group, the Imperial Wizard. He had the largest Klan group in the country. He was murdered. I knew him very, very well. And he played guitar, so we played a little bit of music together when I would go out to Missouri and see him. He would have left the Klan had he lived for about another year. But he was murdered. I knew him. I knew his family. I knew the murderer. But it all started with music. And I want to show you something. Here is another rap. Now, this might be a little triggering, but this is the world in which I live. It's the world in which I work. So pardon the some of the language on here, but I'm going to show you just a little 30-second clip that CNN did of me attending a rally. And I want you to take a look at this Imperial Wizard. Not this one, it's another one here.
Davis is one of the few African Americans you will ever find attending a KKK rally. More than attending, he is welcome.
I got more respect for that black man than I do you white niggers out there.
Has friendship transcended the color barrier? Listen to Kelly at a Klan rally.
I will follow that man to hell and back because I believe in what he stands for and he believes in what I stand for. A lot of times we don't agree with everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me. And I'll respect him to sit down and listen to him.
The strange relationship of a KKK wizard and his black buddy. In Washington, I'm Carl Rochelle, CNN Sunday Morning.
Okay. You heard what that guy said. We may not agree on everything, but at least he respects me to sit down and listen to me, and I respect him to sit down and listen to him. Those are his words. If you don't take anything else home with you tonight, take those words home and apply it. Understand something. I'm not a racist. I'm not a supremacist. I'm not a nationalist, a separatist. I'm none of those things. I did not respect what that man had to say because I don't agree with that stuff. I did not respect what he had to say. I respected his right to say it. You understand the difference? Okay. And that's how we communicate. You know, if you want somebody to hear you, you got to take the time to listen to them as well. And I'm a firm believer that a missed opportunity for dialogue is a missed opportunity for conflict resolution. All right? So in doing so, he would come to my music gigs as well and see me, and we would talk some more, and talk some more. And over time, he began to change, and you saw his ideology beginning to crumble. And then just a few years back, that Klan leader there quit the Ku Klux Klan. It started with music. And when he quit the Klan, he gave me his robe and hood. This is the robe of the Imperial Wizard, the same one you saw him wearing in that video clip. Okay? And of course, this is what's called the hood. The hood and the mask. This is the hood, this is the mask. Members who want anonymity, they wear this mask and look at you through these little eyelets, and which is attached by 3 snaps or Velcro. If they don't care that their identity is revealed, they simply detach the mask and the face is exposed under the hood. And you saw both types on that video clip. This never could have happened without conversation, without the power of music. So if you see 2 people, how far apart can you be, a black man and a Klan leader? But yet music brought us together. Music enabled that conversation. So when you see your school district cutting out the arts in your schools, you vote those people out of office because you want to keep that in there. You know, those music allows people to interact with one another. You know, you play a violin, she plays the piano, he plays the bass, he plays the drums, whatever. You're able to work with one another. You know, if you're angry, you can write an angry song, get your frustrations out. You write it in music and play it. Headbanging music, whatever. If you fall in love, you write a love song. You become creative. And she adds a part, she adds a part, he adds a part. You learn to work ensemble. That's what music teaches you. That's what the arts teaches you. All right? And that's why we need it. So you want to keep that in your schools. Those kids, those people who went into Sandy Hook and Columbine High School and Parkland down in Florida, Virginia Tech, they were not involved in the arts. This is why it's so important. The arts are a necessity, not a luxury. Okay? So I want to conclude here now. I just showed you the power of music. I want to show you some historical things that perhaps you didn't know. So everybody, I think, in here is probably familiar with this gentleman and probably very familiar with this song.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog, you're crying all the time.
Is anybody out there who doesn't know who that
You
is?
ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Well, you ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine. Well, they said you was high class. Well, that was just a lie. Yeah, they said you was high class. Well, that was just a lie. Yeah, you ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Well, you ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine. Well, they said you was high class. Well, that was just a lie. Yeah, they said you was high class. Well, that was just a lie. Yeah, you ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine. Well, they said you was high class. Well, that was just a lie. You know they said you was high class. Well, that was just a lie. Yeah, you ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Well, you ain't never caught a rabbit. You ain't no friend of mine.
Okay, the late, great Elvis Presley. Now, that song came out in 1956, written by Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller. Came out in 1956 by Elvis Presley. But that song came out 3 years before Elvis Presley recorded it. It was first recorded by a black blues female singer named Willie Mae Big Mama Thornton. And here is the original version of Hound Dog. It was originally a blues. Elvis turned it into a rock and roll song. But this is how it went. This is what Elvis listened to. And this is what influenced him. And then he rocked it up because rock and roll was coming in with people like Chuck Berry and Little Richard and Fats Domino and all these people. The guy playing guitar on this recording here is Buddy Guy. And Buddy Guy is still around today.
Let's whip it out, huh? And bring on with a big round of applause. Yeah, I feel real good. I just want to let everybody know all about it. You ain't nothing but a hound. When Snoopy around the door. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. to you too.
Okay, the powerful Big Mama Thornton. And she was one of the major influences on Elvis Presley, also on Janis Joplin. In fact, the song, for you Janis Joplin fans out there, Ball and Chain, was written by that lady right there, Big Mama Thornton. So, we want to also incorporate the history of music, connect the dots, because it's important to know, how you got to where you are. You didn't get there without going through the past. So you always want to be transparent in your history, not exploit music, but give credit where credit is due. So, that's another thing that fair is all about. My boss invented rock and roll. I'm talking about the late, great Charles Edward Anderson Berry, better known to most of you as Chuck Berry. I played piano for Chuck Berry for 32 years. Not every gig, but many gigs all over the place. And without Chuck, you would not have Elvis Presley. You wouldn't have the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Elton John, Ted Nugent, Ozzy Osbourne, Metallica, Jimi Hendrix. Anybody who plays any kind of rock music, all of their DNA goes back to Chuck Berry. I'm going to show you just a couple little clips here. This is, before that, before I show you the thing on Chuck, let me explain. How many rock and roll fans do we have out there? Anybody like rock and roll? Okay, I want to show you what rock and roll artists had to go through, what they had to go through coming up, because rock and roll was not accepted by the establishment back in the day. Picture this. Back in say, the 1940s, there were laws where theaters, music halls, such as a place like this, for example, okay, in the 1940s, they were segregated. If they allowed black people to come in at all and see a show, there were seating sections that were designated by the color of your skin. Ropes went around the chairs with signs hanging down saying colored seating only or seating for white patrons only. So you sat in the section as designated by the color of your skin, just like you all have seen the pictures of the colored water fountain or the colored restrooms and things like that throughout your history books. Concert halls were the same way. So if Patrice and I wanted to go see Frank Sinatra in the 1940s or the Glenn Miller Orchestra or somebody, we could not sit together. We had to sit in our sections as designated by the color of our skin. That same law was still in effect in the 1950s, but two phenomenons happened. One was the invention of rock and roll by Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Fats Domino, Bo Diddley, and the popularization of it by great artists like Elvis Presley, Bill Haley and the Comets, Jerry Lee Lewis, Buddy Holly, Carl Perkins, and many, many others. And what happened was this. When those guys came out playing this new beat that kids had not heard before, kids could not sit still, white kids or black kids. And they bounced up out of their seats and knocked over those signs and started boogieing and dancing in the aisles together for the first time in the history of this country. And that would cause the police to come in and shut down the concert. Concert's over. No more of this. Because they were what? Race mixing. And that was illegal. And many cities all across the United States began banning rock and roll concerts from coming to their town because it caused white youth to race mix with black youth. All right? I'm going to show you some actual news footage from the 1950s, and you will see what I'm talking about. And it wasn't just here in the South, in southern towns. It was all over the country, even as far north as Jersey City, New Jersey. You're going to see the mayor of Jersey City, New Jersey, banning rock and roll concerts because he did not want the dynamite to go off in his city. The dynamite meaning race mixing. All right?
Set up a 20-man committee to do away with this vulgar, animalistic, nigger rock and roll bop.
The obscenity and vulgarity of the rock and roll music is obviously a means by which the white man and his children can be driven to the level with a nigger. It is obviously nigger music.
Well, John, it's our feeling here in Jersey City that this rock and roll rhythm is filled with dynamite, and we don't want the dynamite to go off in the Roosevelt Stadium in Jersey City. After we heard about the incidents throughout the country and the coming of this concert to Jersey City, I asked our Commissioner of Public Safety, Lawrence Whipple, to look into the matter, and he did make a survey of the situation.
My department made a very thorough investigation of these so-called programs. We had telephone conversations and correspondence with various municipalities, included among these being Hartford, Connecticut, Orange, New Jersey, Asbury Park, and the city of Hoboken. And we find that these programs are not for the good of the community, and that's why I ordered them banned.
He ordered them banned, and he had the authority to do so. So this is what rock and roll people had to go through just to play their music. You know, there was no organization like FAIR back then that could have stood up for their rights to play what they wanted to and let people dance with whoever they want to dance with. All right? So rock and roll went through a hard time. Now, I'm going to show you the man who invented rock and roll. This is this is an early clip back when I was slim and trim and had hair on my head. Okay, what do you see? You see black and white people yelling and screaming over a black performer on stage. That could not happen in the 1950s. You know, it's okay if white girls scream and holler over a white guy, like Sinatra, or Pat Boone, or Dean Martin, or black girls hollered and screamed over a black performer, like Nat King Cole, or Louis Armstrong, or somebody, but not flip-flop it. That's what they were trying to avoid in the 1950s. But of course, by the time Michael Jackson came around, you could sit with whoever you want to sit with, dance with whoever you want to dance with, and scream and holler over whoever you want to scream and holler over. Okay? So things have gotten better. Now here is an early clip of the man who first started that, getting those people to integrate while playing rock and roll music.
In the beginning, there was Chuck Berry, in the beginning of rock and roll, that is. The legend of rockin' and rollin' was in town tonight doing his thing at Harbor Lights, and Denise Coke, the world's oldest living teeny bopper, was just down there.
I must be, because he still does something to me, I tell you.
True.
Well, he was there when rock and roll was born in 1955, and every rock musician since then has had Chuck Berry to thank. You know, Maybelline, Roll Over Beethoven, Sweet Little 16, and Johnny B. Good.
He can play a guitar like ringing a bell. Go, go, go. I say go. I say go. Go, go, go. Johnny be good.
Now, 1,700 Chuck Berry fans were in rock and roll heaven tonight, and they come in all sizes, all ages.
For 25 years or more, I've loved the man. Old guy like him getting down.
Remember the duck walk?
I love Chuck Berry. I like to play, and I had to bring my pop down here tonight. That was it.
At one time, Chuck's backup band was Bruce Springsteen and Company. Tonight, they were local musicians jamming with the king.
He'll play a lick, and then I'll imitate his lick.
And these are things that you don't plan.
Right. All spontaneous. That's rock and roll, though.
God loved Chuck Berry, because if it wasn't for him, there would be rock and roll today.
You said it. Well,
Okay, and one last clip. This is just a few years back on the David Letterman show.
Our next guest is not only one of the true pioneers of rock and roll music, he's also a proud citizen of St. Louis. Please welcome the legend himself, Chuck Berry.
Chuck Berry, the man who invented rock and roll. Yeah, so now we study a lot about civil rights icons like Dr. King and Rosa Parks and many other black and white adults who marched and had boycotts and sit-ins and protests and demonstrations in order to bring white adults and black adults together. Chuck Berry achieved it and those other rock and roll people, Elvis, Jerry Lee, Little Richard, Fats Domino, Carl Perkins, Buddy Holly, Gene Vincent, Eddie Cochran. They all achieved it in the 1950s with that music bringing white youth and black youth together. So don't underestimate the power of music. Hail, hail, rock and roll. Okay. All right, I'm going to turn it over to my good friend, Daryl Hölljes.
Daryl Davis, everybody. Daryl, come on. This is going to be a very short presentation, and this slide is mostly just to explain how to say my name. Hölljes, Eric Hölljes. I was born here in Durham, North Carolina. I'm so glad to be home. And just a little bit about me, I moved around the country quite a bit. From Durham, I moved to Raleigh, not a big leap, and then Nashville, Tennessee, Marietta, Georgia, and finally California, where I lost my southern accent and fell in love with songwriting at the age of 10. Moved back to North Carolina to go to college at Duke and majored in philosophy. And immediately after going to school, I put all of that education to use by starting a band with my brother and my sister and some of my best friends. Thank you guys. Thanks. I see some familiar faces, and I'm really grateful you're all here. We're going to have fun tonight. Delta Ray is, we've been very lucky. We've toured all over the world. We've been signed to 2 record labels and also became the most funded independent band on Kickstarter when we launched our own record label. And thanks to all of you. We've had a really amazing path. But why am I here tonight? Because in the behind the scenes, we have been having countless conversations about how to be a band of white people in a country that is becoming more and more divided, and how do we participate in the conversation as musicians when often you're encouraged to shut up and sing, and finding your voice is a challenge. It's been a challenge for us as a band. I'm finding it to be a challenge as an individual. So I'm here tonight to kind of represent, hopefully, maybe some of you out there who are also still trying to figure out how to have a conversation. And Daryl's not here right now, so I can praise him so much. He is an incredible musician, incredible improviser on the keys. Wait until you see his right hand and what it does live. It's really incredible. And he's also an incredible improviser in conversation. He's a storyteller, and he's somebody you feel comfortable talking with and exploring, and he doesn't leave the conversation. I've watched countless interviews with him, his documentary, and he stays in the space he creates for good work to be done and for both people to play their part. I think is something I'm really personally taking to heart as I go back out into the world as a musician and as a person. And I think that we're all feeling this these days. I've lost touch with many of my family members. It's personally painful. I would love to figure out a way to bridge some of those divides. I think that there's a gateway with music that we can explore together, and that's going to be the launching point for a conversation. And then we're also going to play some songs and try to play together, which I'm not a rock and roll musician, but I'll do my best. So when Daryl comes back, we'll get started, but I'm really grateful you're all here, and maybe I'll take a quick request just to get to some music, and then we'll jump into the conversation. Does anybody want to hear anything in particular right now while we're kicking things off? Oh, you're all so shy. It's beautiful. Oh, my God. That's what I wanted to hear. All right, here we go.
I've been looking at the wrong ocean. Carolina's been good to me, but I've been looking at the wrong ocean. California's where I wanna be. 20 years of the same sun rising. My southern roots have just been holding me down. I want to free fall over Mulholland, out where the Eagles met Jackson Brown. Sit and watch the sun go down, 'cause I've been looking at the wrong ocean, and Carolina's been good to me, but I've been looking at the wrong ocean. California's where I wanna be. Outer Banks to the city of angels, one-room apartment on the boulevard. Fifth show with the troubadour in a standing room only. An A&R man with a business card says I'm gonna be a star, 'cause I've been looking at the wrong ocean. Only many smiles I can fake in a row. So many friends that I really don't know. A blue devil on my shoulder whispers in my ear, look homeward, angel, what you doing out here? It's been a long 3 years, and I've been looking at the wrong ocean. California's been good to me, but I've been looking at the wrong ocean. Carolina's where I'm meant to be, yeah, and Carolina's still home to me.
Thank you very much. Let's bring Daryl back up, please. I was buying us time, Daryl. You know, it's so interesting because I think improvisation is something that I'm not great at. And it's why as soon as there was a pregnant pause, I wanted to get back to a song I already knew how to play. And there's something to be learned there. What Daryl has been studying for ever since you became a musician at 17 is improv, correct? And how to play with people you have just met. I thought it would be an interesting place to start the conversation is around kind of those early origins of playing music and having conversations with people. And what was the first song that you wanted to play that brought you to the piano as a way to communicate with people?
Oh, wow, okay, it goes way back.
Mm.
All right, so, you know, believe it or not, growing up, I wanted to become one of two things. Actually, I wanted to do both, but there was no way I could do both. I was being pulled in opposite directions with equal force, so I couldn't move either way. Half of me wanted to be a computer programmer because I knew there was money to be had in computers. But back then, believe it or not, computers took up this whole room, you know? And I knew eventually they would get smaller. I never dreamed they'd get as small as a cell phone, but I knew they would get smaller and, you know, there would be money. The other side of me, pulling this way, believe it or not, I wanted to be a spy, an espionage agent. Yeah. My hero was James Bond. And to this day, I still have my 007 briefcase where you push a button on the handle, it fires plastic bullets. It's probably worth a lot of money today, but but
priceless.
Yeah. So, you know, how could I be James Bond and be a computer programmer at the same time? You know, those two vocations were that far apart. Now, of course, today you can do that. It's called cyber espionage, right? But back in the 1960s, when I was a little kid, you know, those words didn't even exist, cyber and espionage together. So I thought, you know, in high school, I didn't play. I started out late, as Eric pointed out, at the age of 17. I began thinking during my junior year, who are some people that I really, really admire? I always liked music, but I didn't play anything. And two names came to mind instantly. One was Elvis Presley, and the other one was Chuck Berry. And what did I admire about these guys so much? It was the fact that they had made millions upon millions of people all over the world happy with their music. People that they would never meet, people that they would never even see, but they had touched them through the radio, through concerts, through TV appearances. Because, you know, people have seen Elvis, seen Chuck, or bought their records or heard them on the radio, saw them on TV, went to a concert, but they never met them, but yet they were affected by it. And I thought, you know, that's really cool. I want to make people happy, so I'm going to become a musician. Well, guess what? I thought my parents were going to kill me. They were not happy with that idea, trust me. But anyway, that's what I did.
You didn't know how to play yet.
I didn't even know how to play yet. So that was problem number one. But I had to learn fast. So I began teaching myself to play by ear during my junior year of high school. And then I went out and I bought books and taught myself how to read music. Because, you know, if you go to college, you have to audition to major in music. And surprisingly, I passed the audition. You know, I could read and play stuff, but I had bad habits. And I was playing with the wrong hand position, the wrong fingering, because I was self-taught. So I had to relearn all that.
Could you play a little bit for everybody with the three finger? The six finger way is, I mean, it's a bad habit, but it is a cool groove.
Okay, so yeah, so as Eric was talking about, don't ask me why, I don't know. When I first started playing piano, everything that I played, I only played with these 6 fingers. These 2 fingers, they stayed curled up right here like this. I didn't even know why I had these fingers, because they didn't do anything. And so I played everything with these, just how I did it. And then, of course, when I went to college, they said, oh, no, you got to use these fingers and so on. So they retrained me. But the first song that I wanted to play, because, you know, I wanted to play with Chuck Berry. I wanted to play with Elvis Presley. Now, I didn't know these guys, you know, but it was a dream for me. And I figured, well, I guess I better learn how to play if I'm going to play with these guys, right? So I would go, my dream became, I want to go see Chuck Berry. Well, that's easy enough. I want to go see Elvis. That's easy enough. They come to town, you buy a ticket, you go. So I saw Chuck Berry, I saw Elvis Presley, and then my dream expanded. Now I want to meet these guys. Well, that's a little harder. They have a buffer between them and their fans. But eventually I got to meet Chuck, I got to meet Elvis, and then my dream became I want to play with these guys. Well, Elvis died in '77, and I went to his funeral, and I saw Elvis probably about 14 times, met him twice. And I would later play with some of the members of his band in tribute shows to him. But I graduated from Howard University in 1980, and starting in 1981, I began working with Chuck Berry and worked with him on until he retired. Not every gig, but many gigs over 32 years. So the power of music is what drew me. And in order to play with those guys, you had to listen to what they listened to, because there was no rock and roll before them. So what were they hearing? They were hearing boogie woogie, So I began listening to boogie woogie players, people like Pine Top Perkins, Johnny Johnson, Meadlux Lewis, all these people. And so I began playing that boogie woogie style. And I'll play you a little bit of it. He wants to hear the six-finger boogie. Okay. That's six-finger boogie for you now. So, of course, in school, I learned how to use my other fingers. So I'll play you this. This is a boogie woogie, and I don't recall now what song I was playing when the Klansmen came up to me and praised my piano playing and compared it to Jerry Lee and all that, because it's so long ago. But I do remember the style. So here we go. And your knees start knocking, and your hips start rocking. Thank you. So that got me the gig. Now, when
I feel like you skipped a couple steps. That's the first song you learned. I'm like, what? That's,
But you don't learn boogie woogie in school. They don't teach you that in school. Y'all want to know what I learned in school?
We talked about this before. The answer is yes. Can you show them? And then, what,
4 years.
it was beautiful.
But now, when I went to play with Chuck Berry, he said, son, we don't play Ludwig von Beethoven. We play roll over Beethoven.
Well, I feel like the reason I ask is that I feel like it's a really interesting on-ramp to a conversation about how to have conversations, how to be uncomfortable. We both start somewhere. My origin story is so different from yours, which I just love. I mean, but we found our way to the same instrument to communicate. My first song that I wanted to learn was I thought I had invented this. Yeah, that dissonant note. I thought I wrote that when I was a little kid, 7 years old. And then I thought I had learned George Winston's, or Pachelbel's Canon in D, but it's actually in C. And this was a record that I grew up with. Was George Winston was like the. So that's the song I wanted to learn, right? But I was starting at this. And I just think the progression of wherever you are in your journey from piano, and we're both self-taught, we both were put in lessons from our parents, and they teach you. And we both, after 3 lessons, it was kind of amazing to hear you tell this story, because it's my same story. I stopped playing. We both stopped playing, and we were not interested in the instrument for a long time, because we wanted to learn the songs we loved. And the on-ramp there is lost. But we both did have to learn eventually, and I'm still bad at it, but eventually we had to learn them when we got to the point where it was a limitation. We had learned some of our first songs that we wanted to, and then we had to go back and backfill with some of the technique. What I am hoping to do a little bit here is use the piano and use music as kind of a fulcrum to kind of talk to people that we don't talk about how to have conversations, the art of conversation. We talk about music, and we can play music, and we can kind of understand themes, but we don't talk about how do you go talk to your uncle you haven't talked to in 6 years? How do you break the ice? I feel like you are a master of ice breaking and of the art of the conversation, the art of improvisation. And earlier, Daryl and I just met today, but we've had a number of Zoom calls. We've talked a lot about music theory around what was banished, what was illegal in music, and the way that the rules have been broken over time. And I was wondering if you could just kind of play and show some people just what it sounds like, the harmonic structure. You can have a major chord that sounds pleasant, minor chord, makes you feel sad. The tritone. Can you tell people about the tritone?
Okay, a tritone is, technically it's called a augmented fourth or diminished fifth. And it has a very offensive sound to it. Now, not in blues. In blues, we use the tritone all day long, 24/7. But in classical music, you never play it. And in fact, the saxophone, back in the day, way back, was banned from the Catholic Church because on a piano you can play multiple notes at the same time, right? But on a horn, you blow into it, only one note comes out at a time. But if you overblow a saxophone, have you ever whistled and by some freak of a fluke, 2 notes come out? It happens every now and then, right? Okay, well, on a saxophone, if you overblow the saxophone, 2 notes will come out. And those 2 notes, the interval is a tritone. And it's this. Now, that's kind of an assault on the ear, as opposed to this. It's much nicer, right? And so they use tritones on ambulances, on fire engines, because it gets your attention. If you hear right? Car horns are thirds, like that, all right? So the tritone gets your attention. But in blues, we use it all the time. That's a tritone. It sounds great in blues, but not in classical music. So it was illegal to play. So they had rules. But with blues and jazz and country and rock and roll, the artist has the artistic liberty, the freedom to put in whatever they want. If I played a little bit of Hölljes a minute ago by Ludwig van Beethoven. If I were to play it, if you were to close your eyes and I played it, and you keep your eyes closed, and Eric played it, or Patrice played it, you would not be able to tell which one of us is playing it, because you play it as dictated by Ludwig van Beethoven. Where it says crescendo, you crescendo. Where it says decrescendo, you decrescendo. If you don't, you get your knuckles cracked. Okay? But in these other genres of music, and nothing wrong with classical music, I'm not bashing it. I'm just saying it's very restrictive to the composer. You don't have the liberty to interpret it how you want. But with other forms of music, you can interpret it as you see fit. And that thus comes the art of improvisation. For example, you take a song like You Are My Sunshine or whatever. If Bonnie Raitt were to sing it, she would sing it different than Ella Fitzgerald, who might sing it different than Lady Gaga or somebody, because each person can put themselves into the song. And that's the beauty of the kinds of music and genres that Eric and I play.
And I was just going to ask about that. When I see those images of you at a Klan rally, part of what I hear is just this dissonant.
Yeah.
And I feel like often who wants to enter a situation to get a dissonant sound? But I think what's really powerful about it, and stop me if I'm wrong, but what happens if you just let that ring, there's a pull to want to resolve. Nobody wants to live in this tension all the time. Part of blues moves, and it changes, and the next chord might resolve, and that feeling of tension and resolve is what music is built around. You can also have resolves that aren't that unpleasant, or a diminished chord. They all want to pull to the one. They want to bring you back. So I feel like sometimes when we have conversations, setting the expectation that dissonance is actually, it's okay, and having space for dissonance, and then letting things sit there and find the resolve.
That's intentional dissonance, because you want to create an effect with somebody.
Right.
But if dissonance just happens randomly, it's because somebody hit a bad note. They're singing flat or sharp or whatever. They're playing out of tune. All right. But music. This goes back to music therapy. It can set a tone. It can set a mood for you. So, for example, let's just take a nursery rhyme. Let's say Mary Had a Little Lamb. Right. So here's the melody. Now that's just a melody. Now I'll play it with the chordal accompaniment, right? Play a chord. Okay, nice. Now, happy song, all that kind of stuff. Now I'm gonna make it a little more melancholy. What do? I played all major chords with Mary Had a Little Lamb. Now I'm gonna play it with minor chords. You'll recognize the song, but it sounds kind of down. See the difference? That's the power of music. You can set the tone. That's what I'm talking about. They play certain kinds of music in psych wards. They play certain kinds of music in jails, in the dentist's office, to set your mood. He mentioned the diminished chord. The diminished chord causes you to get anxious. It causes you to want to do something. Here's a major chord. Here's a minor chord. Here's an augmented chord. Okay? Here's a diminished chord. Yeah.
It works.
You see, you're sitting on the edge of your seat. They would use diminished chords in horror movies. You watch some of those movies like Frankenstein, the original ones, with Boris Karloff and Lon Chaney. They play a lot of those diminished chords and get you all nervous, and then boom, and you scream in the theater. Because those notes, they affect your body. They affect what you do, how you feel. That's the power of music.
Daryl, can I ask, though, not to trivialize any of this or to try to draw too many parallels, but when you're having a conversation with somebody you don't agree on a lot of things with, perhaps, is there a similar arsenal, a suite of emotional tools that so if I say this right now, I'm going to offend them. I'm going to cause this distance. And how do you do that? And what can you tell us about the suite of I don't know, intervals, chord structures for
Well,
the conversation that you have.
In my job as a band leader, in my band, I'm the band leader, all right. But I'm also a side man to other people's bands, okay. But as a band leader, my job is to create harmony between the voices on my stage, whether they are the vocal voices, the singers, or the horns, or the strings, or the piano, the drums, the bass, the guitar. I want them to be in harmony. The only time I want dissonance is when I intentionally inject it into the piece for effect, like I just did with you guys, all right? Because I said if it happens randomly, it's noise. Somebody hit a bad note, all right, and then they get fired. But so you only want dissonance for effect. So naturally, since I'm trying to procure harmony, when the gig is over and I step off the stage and now I'm out there in society, I also want harmony around me then too. I want people to be harmonious. When I talk with them, when I socialize with them, when I walk into the store, whatever, I want harmony around me. And that's why I was so troubled by people who wore outfits like this, because I want harmony in my society, bring people together. Like I said, I've been doing that for 40 years. I've got tons of robes and hoods at home and swastika flags and all kinds of crazy stuff, that you would not believe. And many of these people have left these movements and groups. Some of them even come out with me and give lectures with me against their former organizations and try to pull people out of those things and try to prevent young people from joining those groups. And it all started with music and creating harmony. Because, music touches the soul. Everybody likes music, whether it's the guy who picks up your trash on Saturday morning, your school teacher, the cashier at the grocery store, a neo-Nazi, a skinhead, a black supremacist, a white supremacist. Everybody likes music. And that's how you can start a conversation, because you have that in common. When two enemies are talking, they're not fighting, they're talking. It's when the conversation ceases that the ground becomes fertile for violence. I start with this guy or any of those people this far apart, right? And you spend 5 minutes with your worst enemy, just 5 minutes, you will find something in common. Maybe you all like the same song. In fact, when we talk about James Bond movies. He likes James Bond, Now, we may not agree on who's the best James Bond, but at least we both like James Bond. He might like Sean Connery, I like Roger Moore, or whatever. But we're talking, and we like James Bond. So you find something in common, that gap narrows a little bit. You talk for another 5 minutes, you find more in common, and it closes even more. When you get to this point, you are in a relationship with your enemy. You may not be, going over to his house and having dinner or something, but you're having some kind of cordial relationship. And you keep on talking, you find more in common, and now you're here. You're being very friendly. When you get at this point, you have found so many things in common that the trivial things that you have in contrast, such as skin color, or whether you go to a church, a synagogue, a mosque, or a temple, begin to matter less and less. And that's what happened with him.
One of the things that you've said that I so admired and took immediately to heart was you really have issue with people saying you converted people from the Ku Klux Klan, correct?
Correct.
And you prefer the language, and language really matters, that you were the impetus. Conversations with you was part of the story.
Right.
And when you have conversations with somebody you disagree with, you do not attack their view straight up, because that will cause them to be defensive, and then you can't communicate. What you do is you share your view, and they both sit on the table, and you just let that dissonance be there. And
Exactly.
you let the fact that you have the relationship cause the seek to resolve.
Right. It's like this. So let's say I'm playing something. You all are waiting for something.
Yeah. It's painful.
It's painful, isn't it? Suffer. That's the
so
resolve.
Sweet. So sweet.
Okay? So, you leave somebody hanging and then you resolve. Now, as a kid, My parents were in the U.S. Foreign Service, so I grew up as an American embassy kid, traveling all over the world, beginning at the age of 3. Yeah. I was born in 1958, and starting in 1961, I began traveling the world. And how it works is, you get assigned by our government to go live in a foreign country for 2 years, and then you come back home here to the States. You're here for a little while, and then you go to another country for 2 years, back and forth, back and forth. Today, I'm doing the same thing as a musician, playing around the world. When you combine my childhood travels with my adulthood travels, I have now been in a total of 61 countries on 6 continents. I have played in all 50 states. What does that mean, other than I'm well-traveled? It means that I have been exposed to a multitude of skin colors, ethnicities, religions, cultures, ideologies, belief systems, all over the world. And all of that has impacted me and made me who I am today. And I can tell you something. No matter how far I go from our country, the United States, whether it's right next door to Canada or right next door to Mexico or halfway around the globe, no matter how different the people may be who I encounter, perhaps they don't look like me, they don't speak my language, or they don't worship as I do, I always conclude one thing, and that is that we all are human beings. And as such, we all want the same 5 core values in our lives. Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to be respected. Everybody wants to be heard. We all want to be treated fairly and truthfully. And we all want the same things for our family as anybody else wants for their family. And if we can learn to employ those 5 core values, or any of those values, when we find ourselves in an adversarial situation or in a society or culture in which we are uncomfortable or unfamiliar, I can guarantee you that your navigation will be much more smooth and much more positive. Because that's how people come together with those commonalities. Now, Eric mentioned, attacking somebody's reality. You can get that resistance. This is true. When you Google my name or whatever, you see all kinds of stuff. Black musician converts X number of KKK people or neo-Nazis or whatever. No. I did not convert anybody, not even one. I have been the impetus for over 200 to convert themselves, simply by sitting down and talking with them and listening to them. Like I said, I don't have to respect what they're saying. I'm respecting their right to say it. And in exchange for me doing that, they sit down and listen to me. And then they have to think about some of the things that I've said. Now, understand something. One's perception is one's reality. Whatever you perceive becomes your reality, because that's all you know. Never attack somebody else's reality. You will lose. Because as soon as you attack their reality, they're going to push back, because they think it's real. Even if it's not real, you know it's not real, but they don't know that. They only know what they know. And if you're attacking their reality, they're going to resist and push back.
So what do you do? What
do you do is this. You offer them a better perception. Now, let me explain. I'm going to give you two examples. I'll give you a hypothetical one and a real one. All right? Let's say you have a 7 or 8 year old brother, and he goes to a magic show with his buddies, and he comes home and tells you, man, you're not going to believe this. This magician on stage, he asked for a female volunteer, and 50 women raised their hand, and he picked one out of the audience and brought her up on stage, and he had her climb into this long box and put her feet out the hole there and put her head out the hole here. And then he closed the box. He took a chainsaw and cut it in half right down the middle. And then he told her to wiggle her feet, and she did. He cut that woman in half. And you're like, no, it didn't exactly happen like that. Yes, it did. I saw it. I was there with my own eyes. You weren't even there. I saw it. He cut her in half. Her feet were sticking out here. Her head was there. See, you are attacking his reality. He knows what he saw. He saw that woman put her feet out the hole, put her head out the hole here, and the saw went through the middle of the box and down through the bottom. He cut her in half as far as he's concerned. You know better, all right? And then to make it even more real for you, the 7 or 8 year old tells you that once he cut her in half, she wiggled her feet, He took the half of the box with the feet and moved it over here to stage right, and then took the half of the box with the head and moved it over there to stage left. And then he walked over there and talked to the lady's head, and her head talked back to him. And then he brought the two halves back together, and he did some incantation, abracadabra stuff, and then he opened the lid, and she climbed out, full form, no blood, all put back together. He cut her in half. And you say, well, it was an illusion. No, it wasn't. I'm telling you, I saw it with my own eyes. You weren't even there. I saw it. Again, you're attacking his reality. So don't do that. What you do is you offer him a better perception. You say, listen, do you think maybe, just maybe, it's possible that perhaps when he asked for a female volunteer and 50 women raised their hand, that the one he picked, maybe she works for him? Maybe he planted her in the audience. She travels all over the country with him to every show. She knows the trick. And he brings her up on stage, and he has her climb into the box, and there's already a pair of dummy legs, mannequin legs, laying on the floor of the box that are wearing the same stockings and shoes that she has on. She just simply picks them up and shows them out the hole. And she brings her own knees up under her chest. So her whole body is on that half of the box. So when he cuts the box in half, he doesn't even touch her. And when he says, wiggle your feet, she just grabs those legs and shakes them. And then, so of course, now when he moves this half of the box with the feet over here, those feet can't move anymore because they're over there and they're dummy legs. So he has to draw your attention away from those feet. So he walks over there to where the head is and talks to her. Of course she's going to talk back because her whole body is over there. And then he brings the two boxes back together. She just pulls the legs out, leaves them on the floor, and she climbs out. No blood. And then the 7 or 8-year-old says, that might be the only way that could work. So you've given him a better perception. And one's perception is one's reality. So if they resonate with your perception, they will change their own reality rather than attack their reality. Don't do that. Give them a better perception. So now that's just a hypothetical. Now I did see David Copperfield really make an elephant disappear off the stage. I did. You weren't there. I saw
it.
Okay, so for real though, I mentioned in one of the slides I showed you where I was talking to the Klansman with the mask and the green cross who threatened me, the Imperial Wizard standing over here. I told you he was murdered. Well, I went to his funeral out in Missouri, and I played some hymns on the piano for the funeral service. And I'd never met his family before. His family had nothing to do with the Klan, nothing whatsoever, and they didn't understand why their son was involved in that. He had 3 sisters. He was the only boy, and he was always a man. And none of them were involved in that. But they loved their brother. They loved their son. And I got to meet his parents and his family for the first time. I'd known him for a while, but I never met them because they didn't have anything to do with the Klan. And so I became close to the family. And after he was buried, the father would call me about every other day because they were very happy about my relationship with their son, and they saw him changing, and they also felt that eventually he would leave because of our friendship. And the father would call, and he would cry on the phone to me, and I would talk with him, and try to console him and things like that because that was his only son. Well, one day he called me, and I was sitting in my living room, and he told me he had a gun. He was crying, and he was going to go and kill the person that murdered his son. And like I said, I knew that person, and I understood his anger. And I knew if I said, listen, don't do that because, you're already an old man. And if you do that, you're going to be in prison for 40 years. You're going to die in prison. That would not have mattered to him because that person took the life of his son, and that person deserves to die, and I'm going to take that person out. That was his reality, and there's nothing I could do to attack that reality to cause him. He didn't care about if he went to prison for 40 years because, that person took something away from him that will never come back. So I had to give him another perception, and I said, listen, you've got 3, all his kids are adults, and they have families of their own. I said, you got 3 beautiful daughters. I said, you know, if you go and kill that person, you will never, you're going to lose your daughters. You've already lost your son. He's not coming back. I said, you do that, you're going to prison, and they don't put you in a prison in Missouri where you live. They're going to put you out in San Quentin in California or Rikers Island in New York to make it hard for your family to come see you. You're not going to see your family anymore. You're going to die in prison. You've lost one son. Why do you want to lose 3 beautiful girls? That resonated with him. He decided not to go and kill that person. So what you do is you don't attack somebody's reality. Give them a better perception. And if that perception resonates with them, they will change their own reality.
Wow. Yeah.
Thank you.
Time is flying. We are, I think we have maybe 30 minutes left.
Okay, well, we'll do some Q&A, but before we do that, let me show you the importance of copyright.
Let's demonstrate it.
Yeah, let's demonstrate it. Okay, so no matter who writes a song, is he or she who owns the copyright is the one that gets the royalties. So it's very important when you create something, whether it's intellectual property or physical property, whatever, make sure you get a copyright. If it's something physical, you make sure you get a patent and you get it registered. So that way you own the rights to that piece of property that you created. It is yours. So if anybody infringes upon your invention, your composition, your whatever, you can take them to court and get stop them from taking it and making money off what you created. So it's very important, that you own the rights to your stuff. People write songs all the time and don't even think about getting them copyrighted. All right, you must do that so that way you can protect your property. So I'm going to show you an example of something. Let me just show it to you right here. They're really rocking in Boston, Pittsburgh, PA, deep in the heart of Texas, around the Frisco Bay, all over Philly, and down in New Orleans. All the cats wanna dance with sweet little 16. Sweet little 16, she just got to have about 500,000 famous autographs. Her wallet's filled with pictures. She gets them one by one. Becomes so excited. Why don't you look at her run? Oh, mommy, mommy, please may I go? Such a sight to see. Somebody steal the show. Oh, daddy, daddy, I beg of you. Whisper it to mommy, it's all right with you. 'Cause they be rocking on bandstand, Philadelphia, PA, deep in the heart of Texas, around the Frisco Bay, all over St. Louis, and down in New Orleans. All the cats wanna dance with sweet little 16. This song that I'm playing right now, it was written by my boss. The year I was born, 1958. Written by the late, great Chuck Berry, called Sweet Little 16. 5 years later, another artist came along, and they just stole his song. They kept the same chord progression and the same melody. All they did was change the words. And then they claimed that they wrote it. And guess what? That song became the biggest hit of their career until Chuck Berry sued them because he owned the copyright. Now, whenever their song gets played, Chuck Berry gets paid. their song went like this. I'm gonna show it to you right now. Eric's gonna sing it for you. Wait a minute.
If everybody had an ocean across the USA, then everybody'd be surfing like California. You'd see them wearing their baggies, Huarache sandals too, a bushy blonde hairdo, surfing USA. You'd see him surfing in Del Mar, Ventura County line, Santa Cruz and Trestle, Australia I've never been, over Manhattan, down Pirelli Way, everyone's been surfing USA.
Little 16, she's got the grown-up blues, tight dresses and lipstick, she's wearing high-heel shoes. By tomorrow morning, she'll have to change her trend and be sweet 16 and back in class again. And they'll be rocking on bandstand in Philadelphia, PA, in the heart of Texas, around the Frisco Bay, all St. Louis, down in New Orleans, all the cats wanna dance with sweet little 16.
Everybody's gone surfing USA.
Everybody wants to dance with sweet little 16. So, now the Beach Boys, who had the hit with Surfing USA, they were not doing that maliciously, like some people would do, take somebody's music and steal it. But they loved Chuck Berry. They wouldn't be around without Chuck Berry. They loved him, and they wanted to do a tribute to him. But you can't just take somebody's song without permission and change the words and call it your own. So Chuck, they're friends. Chuck sued them and won. And so now if you look at the Beach Boys record, normally under the title of a song, it'll give the composer's name. You look at Surfing USA, it says Chuck Berry. He also sued the Beatles. If you know the song Come Together, the very opening line, here come old flat top, he be moving up slowly, right? That comes from, that was, 1964 or 65 by Come Together by the Beatles. That line came from a Chuck Berry song from 1956 called You Can't Catch Me. But again, the Beatles, they love Chuck Berry. The first thing they wanted to do, when Chuck and Little Richard would tour over in Europe, the Beatles were the opening act for them. And when they came to the United States for the first time, they wanted to meet Elvis. They wanted to see Chuck Berry. They wanted to go where all their heroes recorded and see all that. So it wasn't anything malicious, but still, now, I'll tell you who was malicious about it, who would just steal stuff and know they stole it, was Led Zeppelin. They stole a lot of stuff, and knowingly, and took credit for it until they got sued. But that's the importance of maintaining your intellectual property and getting things copyrighted. So if you write something, a song, a poem, a book, or whatever it is you do not share it publicly until you get the copyright. And all you got to do is go to loc.gov. LOC stands for Library of Congress. That's where you get your copyrights. And just download the form, fill it out, pay your copyright fee, and once you get that thing stamped and embossed in the mail, you can share it with the public. Because people will take things. Sometimes it's done intentionally. Sometimes they don't know. Maybe they had the same idea you did. Because the ideas are not so plentiful. But you might be thinking the same thing I'm thinking. But if I do it before you do it, if I get the copyright before you did, you might have thought about it 5 years ago, and I just thought about it yesterday. But I went and got the copyright. It's mine. Okay. Any questions? I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, in case you didn't know, Daryl also, among many other things now, is doing a publishing company, so that's why he's encyclopedic with his knowledge of copyright. And we want to open the room up for questions. If you guys have any questions, you can yell it out. I'm going to say it again over the microphone for the rebroadcast. We'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, I have so many more questions I would personally like to ask, but I think it would be really fun to hear from some of you. So please, don't be shy. Just raise your hand. We'll call on you, and we'll keep the conversation going. Anybody got anything? Oh, I love this crowd. Yes, back there.
I don't know if this is a question so much as a suggestion in terms of offering people another way. Would you ever say to someone, okay, so you explained your vantage point, if that's true, then this would be true, which means this would be true, which means this would be true, and lead them into a resolution that, or realization that what they're observing doesn't make sense.
Reductio ad absurdum. Socrates.
Yeah,
methodology.
absolutely. You got to connect the dots.
Okay, the question was, everybody, in case you couldn't hear it, do you ever take somebody's philosophy of life or something that they're saying and lead them to a natural conclusion that maybe contradicts with what they've said? And
all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Because you have to connect the dots. A lot of people, it doesn't matter what color you are, what religion you are, whatever, they live in a vacuum. And they surround themselves with an echo chamber, a bubble, where everybody in that bubble says the same thing, so therefore it must be true. Because they hear that all day long. So what you do is you got to take them out of that bubble and connect the dots, and then let them come to that conclusion. You give them that perception. You know, let me tell you something. And I also, along the same lines, I explain to people my definition. Some people think that the terms ignorance and stupidity are synonymous. I don't. For me, and I explain this to people, is that to me, an ignorant person is someone who makes a bad choice or the wrong decision because he or she does not have the facts, does not have the proper information to make the correct decision or make a good choice. So if you give them that information, you give them those facts, you have alleviated their ignorance, and they can make the correct choice or good decision. A stupid person is someone who has the facts, who has the right information, and still makes the wrong choice. For example, let's say I have a room, right? And I paint the walls in the room, and the walls are wet, but I don't post any signs that say wet paint, stay off the walls. Anybody coming into that room is ignorant, not in a derogatory sense, but in the unaware sense. They're ignorant to the fact that these walls are wet. And they might go and lean up against the wall. And now they got paint on their clothes because they didn't know. I can cure that ignorance by posting signs that say, wet paint, stay off the walls. I can stand in the doorway and tell each person coming in the door, hey, gather around the center. I just painted these walls 10 minutes ago. They're still wet. So now everybody has the proper information. Everybody has the facts to make the right decision. But still somebody goes and leans against the wall, and now he wants to know why is there paint on his clothes? It's because he's stupid. Okay? So,
but we're arguing these days about what facts are. So I mean,
there are opinions and there are facts.
But that is honestly where the argument is now. It's about whether or not you agree on the same facts. And in thinking that way, what you've done, which I so admire, is building trust. And because you'll trust the fact from somebody that, or you'll believe the fact from somebody you trust.
Well, yeah, because your credibility is your most valuable asset. You know, if you're not, listen, these people don't change overnight. And it takes repeat times for me to spend time with these people. And when I meet somebody like that, I want to see them again. And so my credibility is my most valuable asset. Even though they don't like me, if they find out that I'm credible, I'm transparent, I'm trustworthy, that I gave them proper information, then I say, hey, listen, man, I appreciate, you're spending time sharing your views with me. Let me process it. Is it okay if I call you in a couple weeks and follow up with some questions I might have? They'll probably say, yeah, that's cool. But if I lie to them or they catch me in something that wasn't credible, they're like, no, we're done. because that just reinforces what they already believe about me, right? So your credibility is your most valuable asset. You know, in anything you do, if you go and buy a used car, and the guy's selling it to you, as soon as you get it off the lot, the wheel falls off. You know, you're never going to buy a car from him again. You know, so your credibility is your most valuable asset.
I like that a lot. Can we take it? Yes, please.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
I was taken by how, in a way, easy you made it sound to sit and talk to people when you're all the way out here. And I wonder, I've spent so much time trying to figure out how to debate and what facts to bring and all the right sort of ways of arguing. And it feels like it's not about logic, it's just about being there. And I'm curious, like, do you feel like it might be easier than some of us might believe out here to maybe learn from yours as a whole?
The question is, you make it seem easy to have conversations with people you disagree with. Is it that easy? And how is it that easy? Is how I read it. Am I correct?
I'm comfortable in my skin. I'm comfortable anywhere I go. I've been all over the world. I may not fit in everywhere, but I'm comfortable, and I don't mind talking to anybody. And I can tell you this. In all honesty, I think one of the things that has enabled me to be able to do this, and it doesn't work all the time. I mean, there are people who will go to their grave being hateful, violent, and racist and whatever on all sides. And I mean, I've had my share of violence. I've had to hurt people and put them in the hospital and then put them in jail, you know, for putting their hands on me because, some people just don't like you. As soon as they see you, they want to stomp on you because, you're black, because you're Jewish, because you're gay, because you're whatever it is, they don't like. There's no talking. And fortunately for me, those times have happened few and far between, and hopefully it'll stay like that. But I would say, but I don't give up on those people. I just move them down the list, and deal more with people, that are, acquiescent to having conversations, and then I work my way down. And even some of those people that I've had fights with have come back to me later on, not all of them, and said, hey, I'm sorry, I see where you're coming from or whatever. It's not all that easy. It takes a lot of time, and it takes, hearing a lot of offensive kind of stuff, before you break that ice. I have to put up with a lot of nonsense that I know is not true. But I think my upbringing had a lot to do with it. Because my parents had taken me all over the world and exposed me to so many different cultures, I just view that as another culture, okay? If I had grown up here in my own country my whole life, maybe I'd be staying as far away from those people as I could. I wouldn't even be talking to them. That's possible too, because a lot of people don't understand why I do it. I do it because of this. Our country, our society, can only become one of two things. One, it can become that which we sit back and watch it become, or it can become two, that which we stand up and make it become. So we all have to ask ourselves a question. And you don't have to answer it for me. You have to answer it for yourselves. Do you want to sit back and see what your country becomes, or do you want to stand up and make it become what you want to see? I've chosen the latter. I want to stand up and make it become what I want to see.
I think we have time for one more. Correct me if I'm wrong, any of the organizers, but yes, right in the middle, please. Oh, we'll take two. Say yes to you first, please. Go ahead.
When you sit down to have conversations with people and you try to find this common ground, are you talking about, hey, tell me about your family or what kind of music you like, or do you just simply say, tell me about what you believe in? Like, how do you start these conversations with these people who are so different from you, at least at the start?
Fine thing.
Just real quick, the question was, how do you start these conversations with people who disagree with you from the start?
Don't start with a point of contention. Start with something that you both have in common. Maybe you like the same sports team, or you like the same quarterback, or the same movie, or whatever. Start with commonalities, and then you work your way towards the things, that you may have a disagreement about. But again, you don't attack their reality. You listen to their views. You say, well, convince me why you think I should believe that way, or let me tell you why that doesn't set right with me. Don't frame it as a debate. Frame it as a conversation. We're just exchanging views. And that goes a long ways.
Yes, please.
Something that I have been coming to, a question I've been asking myself a lot recently, is how to foster curiosity in situations where people have rigid mindsets. Because oftentimes a debate is the natural course of a conversation between people with rigid mindsets. And you can't break away from that until someone becomes curious. How do you foster that innocence of curiosity between people who oppose?
The question is, how do you foster the curiosity when you of somebody you're having a conversation with when you know you disagree? How do you get them interested in your opinion?
What you do is you find somebody who looks like them, or who belongs to the same religion as them, and say, well, this person looks like you, but they think this. Why do you think they think that? You know, point out some similarities that they have. And then they see that in somebody else, and it begs them to question themselves. Okay, well, why is he believing that, and I look the same way as he does? That will start it, because you look the opposite, from what they look like, or you belong to a different religion or whatever else, so already you're on the other side. But find something that they have in common with somebody else who may not agree. And don't say, I'm not saying this person is right and you're wrong or whatever. Just say, you both come from the same church, or you both come from the same town, or you both come from the same skin color, or whatever it is you may be, but you both have different opinions. How can this be? Explain that. And that gets them to think about other things.
We're going to have a meet and greet hang session, so maybe we can do some of the questions there. Where are the, yes? Yes.
All right, so Rob Yates, Charlotte Fair, fairforall.org. I encourage everyone to check it out, sign the Fair Pledge, the website, we got lots of good stuff. To sum it all up, we have a message that we call pro-human. If you've checked out some of our podcasts, they're amazing. Daryl does one, it's the third one, I believe. I've listened to it a couple times. Even there, Daryl's telling a story about some protesters that were outside, and he just asked the owner if he could invite him in, come sit, have a conversation with me, and I can tell you it's inspired me personally. But as a closing note, I want to ask both of you. Well, first I want to thank you. This has been awesome. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. And may we close with one song?
Song and question. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
What does being pro-human mean to you?
I'll go first, because I think you're going to have the more. The question is, what does pro-human mean to me? I was a philosophy major. My favorite philosophers were the Socrates, the Immanuel Kants, the people that accepted two realities. One was that we do not know everything. We don't know what happens after we die. No, we don't know. We don't know if we have free will. We don't know. Some of the biggest questions in life are things we can't know for certain. You accept that. And then you also accept that you can't not ask and try to answer those questions. And I think being pro-human is the acceptance that we won't have certainty. And that we get to be between these two sides of not being apathetic and not asking the questions and not being so certain in your answers. And if we stay in that sweet spot, we get to keep playing, learning, and discovering and making decisions, which you still have to do, for whatever the moment calls for. Please give the better answer.
For me, and how I gave Brian Bartling the suggestion that we create FAIR. Brian Bartling is the founder and president of FAIR, Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism. He was talking about how we can do anti-racist work. And I understood what he was saying. But I said, let's not be anti-racist. Let's be anti-racism. We don't want to be anti the person, because the person has a learned behavior. being a racist, whether you're white, black, or Hispanic, or Asian, or whatever, being a racist is a learned behavior. You're not born that way. You acquire it from somewhere. So instead of being anti the person, let's be anti the ideology. Because what can be learned can be unlearned. It may take some time. I'll give you an example. You all see this gut right here? Don't laugh at it. I just said, do you see it? Yes or no? Okay. Now, believe it or not, there was a time when I was slim and trim, like my friend Eric over here. And I'm trying to get back to that point. Okay? I'm working on it. You all should have seen it last year. All right? I'm getting there slowly but surely. I did not put this on overnight. Therefore, I'm not going to lose it overnight. There is no one pill that I take tonight and boom, I'll drop 50 pounds by tomorrow. Right? You have to work at it. That's what conversations do. That's what the power of music does. Okay? We work at it incrementally. And that's how we achieve those goals. So when we take out, saying we're not going to be anti-racist, we're going to be pro-human. Okay? Because we don't want to be against somebody. We want to be against their bad ideas because they can change. So I said, let's be pro-human. And he agreed. And because when you take something out, you've got to replace it with something. So let's not be anti, let's be pro. And to me, that is what pro-human is, where everybody gets along. We are human beings. We all need to learn to get along. And that's what pro-human is to me.
I always speed this one up, so maybe you should start. I always speed this one up, so maybe you should start the tempo.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to do one more song, and then we're going to have a meet and greet hang. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. It's been fun. Thank you, Daryl, for having me.
This song was written by a fellow named Wilbur Harrison. And Wilbur Harrison had a big hit with a song called Kansas City. I'm going to Kansas City, here I come. Right, so he wrote this song called Let's Work Together. And a group called Can Heat recorded it back in the 1960s and had a big hit with it. And many other artists have recorded it called Let's Work Together. It goes like this. Together we will stand, divided we'll fall. Come on now people, let's get on the ball and work together. Let's work together. For together we will stand, every boy, girl, woman, and a man.
If things go wrong, as they sometimes will, and the road you walk is all uphill, let's work together. Come on, let's work together. For together
do it.